Let's talk about my best picks for 2025. I played a number of games, like huge number of games this year, and it also made me realize that there's a huge number of really great games. So it's really hard to pick the top best picks. It's really hard to pick the best picks. This is just based on what I like and what I thought deserves my best pick for 2025. And yours could look very different, and that's totally fine. That's completely fine. This is just my personal picks and the games that I really think that you should play before you move on to 2026 collection, because 2026 going to be a freaking insane year and you're going to get so many good games. I think if you haven't played any of the picks that I'm going to mention today, you need to try them before you move on to the next year. You have like 3 days. Get on with it. Anyway, so my first pick is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. This is obviously not for like everybody. I can tell you that right off the bat. It's got a very steep learning curve. Very steep learning curve. If you played KCD 1, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Even if you play KCD 1, Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, that is like that takes a lot of time to until you're like properly used to the combat system and everything. It's very complicated, especially the combat system, because you essentially start off as a nobody and you got no skills, you don't know how to fight, and you're just like a blacksmith's son, and no one cares about you. It's a medieval game, but you're just a nobody. You're basically an NPC in the game, so you have to like level up your skills from scratch. The game looked amazing, by the way. I'm just looking at this gameplay, I'm like, holy crap, that looks so good. And it does look this good, and you actually play, if you can't tell. But yeah, this is what you have to do. You have to learn everything from the beginning, even down to like riding a horse. The only thing you don't have to learn is walking. Everything else you have to learn and get good. So it's got a very steep learning curve, and that can put off a lot of people. And it did put me off at first too. Like it really did. When I first played KCD 1, I'm like, oh, this is so hard. Like the combat system is so difficult, and it's like it's like it it feels like a version of learning to walk all over again, but except you're learning to fight, and it really makes you feel like that. It really makes you feel helpless when you play it, and like there's no other option than to actually get good at it, to put it simply. But once you get good at it, and mind you, it doesn't actually take that long. Like if you just like really focus on the gameplay and try to do it exactly what they intended to do with the melee combat system, you will pick it up pretty quickly. And once you do, the game just opens up, and it's the best. It's the best feeling. And KCD 2 does exactly that, but better. Better storytelling, better combat, and just overall better world. I wouldn't say it's necessarily like the biggest open world out there. It's not. It's going for quality over quantity, I would say. It's not a huge world. You experience the whole thing in first person anyway, so it feels bigger. And the pacing of the game is very slow. It's very intentionally very slow, and as you can see, like everything, even down to the dialogue, has a lot of systems at play here. Like you have to stay fed, stay hydrated, or otherwise your stamina will go down. You have to sleep on time, otherwise your health will deteriorate. There's a lot of that too. You have to manage your inventory. You have, when you talk to a person, you have to be careful. Everything can go south very quickly. Things in the world will affect you in very different ways. You can get poisoned, not just poison, like you can overeat as well. Like if you get overeat, like you get bloated or whatever, and you're slow. Yeah, things like that happen. So it's a very realistic take as well. It's almost like a sim, medieval sim, and well, role playing taken to the extreme, but it's very good because like it really makes you feel lost in the world, and you can like you're immersed and lost in it. And this is the kind of game you play for hours, and if you don't play for hours at a time, it's just not enjoyable. Like you have to play a couple hours, 2 hours a day if you're playing it, and to really get the feel for it, you know. And yeah, it's a it's a crazy game, and KCD2 just did everything better in every way compared to the first game. So because of that, it's one of my best picks. But I do understand this is not for everybody. You have to have a lot of patience to play this game. But the storytelling, the gameplay, the world itself is so alive, and everything just feels like you know LARPing. People do LARPing for exactly this reason, like to feel what it feels like to live in the medieval times. This makes you do that. This gives you that experience without having to LARP. You know, that's what this is. And as you can see, like here, you're in a fight, but this is not just hack and slash like you normally get in games. You have to block attacks with your sword. You have to aim which direction your sword is swinging, um and you have to exactly block in the same direction, like in the opposite direction to where their attack is coming from, otherwise you won't block it. Yeah, and the sword play is very deliberate and slow, like in real life. It's not fast, and you're not jumping around and doing double jumps and freaking doing combos. No, you're actually fighting in a realistic way, and that you have to get used to. That's the hardest part. That I would say is the hardest part in this game. Everything else is like pretty easy to get used to, the system. But there are a lot of systems at play, so it could be a little bit overwhelming when you first start off because there's so many things to remember. But once you do, it's like the world is your oyster, man. So yeah, KCD 2. If you haven't played this game, and if you've been reluctant to play this game, I would say start with KCD 2. If you haven't played KCD 1, don't play it. Don't play KCD 1. You don't have to. If you do play, you get a lot of the context and like lore wise. But the game pretty much starts off with giving you the backstory of Henry and what's happened so far. Like it catches you up. So it doesn't matter if you haven't played the first game. You can just jump into this and still enjoy it. And if you've been reluctant to play it, I would say KCD2 is the perfect jumping point, and you can just play it. And if you really end up enjoying it, then you can play KCD. Go back and play KCD1, I think, and you still have a good old time. But the thing is, KCD2 almost does everything that KCD1 does, except better, and it looks better too. So you probably, when you go back to KCD1, you're gonna notice a lot of the jankiness that was present in the first game. So that's the only thing. So if you want to play the first game, I would recommend playing that first and then going into this. But if you don't, just jump into this. You don't have to know what happened in the first one. You'll catch up and still enjoy this game. So definitely recommend. Second one, South of Midnight. So this actually won in the Game Awards. I think it won the best impact or something like that. I don't even know what that means. But yeah, it won an award at the Game Awards for Best Impact or something. But what I liked about this game, it had a lot of heart and it was very unexpected for me. I just played it because it was available for me to play for free, not free, but on Game Pass, on PC Game Pass. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give it a shot because it looks interesting. And it got like stop motion, clay motion animation going for it, and I thought that was really interesting. And I really loved the setting of like New Orleans, like swamp, that sort of like setting. So that's what this is. Like that's where the setting is. So let me skip to, yeah, 'cause this is what the game looks like. So I really enjoyed that. And the game starts off with like a really, got a bad storm going on, and like this whole massive thing. Just the storm comes up, and like your house sort of gets taken away by the flood. with your mom in it. Yeah, so you're chasing after the house, trying to get on it and try to save mom. It's insane. Like you first start off with this massive action set piece where you're trying to get to your mom who's in the house that's been taken away by the flood, and it's literally floating away from you. And little by little, you sort of pick up on little cues of what the hell is going on. Like at first it's not as happy. Not everything you see is very kind of, how do I put it? It's kind of fooling you into thinking you know what's going on, but like the game appears to be not what it seems. That's all I will tell you. I'm not gonna show you any later gameplay for you guys anyway, because I don't. If you're planning on playing this, I'm not gonna spoil it for you. Obviously not. But this game literally is one of the bigger, not the biggest, bigger surprises for me. Like more pleasant surprises. The story itself had a lot of heart, and it was very enjoyable. And yeah. So you see that, and I'm like, what the hell is that? It looked like a freaking spider, and you don't hear or see you don't see or hear about whatever that you saw there for a long time. It just leaves you wondering what the hell you just saw, and you just keep going as everything's normal. It's just a storm, whatever, and then the world slowly opens up little by little, and you're surprised at every turn. And it's a really fun experience. Really fun experience. So if you haven't, and it's a very quick play too. It's not that long. I think like 12 hours to finish the whole game. So if you haven't played this, I recommend that you play it. This is also coming to PlayStation 5, I think, and also Nintendo, I believe. I'm not sure whether, yeah. So it's going to be on every platform soon. It's not just an Xbox exclusive anymore. So if you haven't played it, I really urge you to give it a shot. It's a very quick play. You can literally finish this in a weekend if you play. Unless you're like a perfectionist, you want to go out to like every nook and cranny, looking for collectibles. That'll take a little longer. It doesn't have a lot of collectibles, but it does have a few to keep you engaged. But if you're one of the person who just want to run through the story and experience for what it is, then it'll be a very quick run for you, and it's really worth your time. So that'll be my best pick for 2025. Indiana Jones. I have to give that. Nobody talked about this game for some reason. Even in the Game Awards, there was no mention of this game, and I was really surprised. It was nominated for like one of the things. I was really surprised that it didn't win any sort of award. It was really surprising for me. But yeah, this game definitely deserves your time. When I first saw the announcement for Indiana Jones: The Great Circle, I was very skeptical because it's a first person game. you know, you think of Indiana Jones and they're making a game based on Indiana, and it's like a canon as well. It's a canon story, and to the point that like they literally recreated this scene from the movie as well. Like this is like one-to-one recreation of the movie scene, and they've done a pretty good job at it. You can go see comparisons or videos of this, then you can see how well they've done it. So, and there are a few surprises here. First being, I have to commend Troy Baker for doing a phenomenal job of portraying young Harrison Ford. I mean, that's what this is. Like, this is a young Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones, and he does it really well, really well. And let me see if I can show you.
Thought I'd use an Xbox controller for.
Oh, this guy's talking over it.
All
All right. Well, it's not an uncommentary, so I can't really show you. Anyway, but you can go look at it. It's yeah, his voice acting is literally on point. Like you forget that it's not Harrison Ford voicing the character. You actually forget because he got it so right, and it's phenomenal. He sounds and I know what you're thinking. Troy Baker, oh my god, this guy is in every game. He literally plays all the famous characters. Like he's Joel from The Last of Us, and you think you know, having heard him play Joel, like he'll sound like Joel, right? But no, he actually sounds like a young Harrison Ford, and it's amazing. It's really, really amazing. He manages to capture the all the little nuances of young Harrison Ford's voice. He doesn't sound like Harrison Ford now. He sounds like Harrison Ford back then in the how he sounded in these movies, and it's crazy. And I have to commend him for that. And it's so annoying that he didn't win anything for that. I think he should be recognized. He did a phenomenal job at that. That's one. And then the other surprise was this being a first-person game, and I didn't think, because of what the premise is like. It's Indiana Jones. You're treasure hunting, so like that was like that immediately felt like you had to well, like that would warrant for like a third person action game. Like that's what you would expect from a game like that. Like having played games like Tomb Raider, the Uncharted series, like that's what works for this type of game, right? Like, oh, you're treasure hunting person and that's what you're doing. It kind of makes sense to have it in third person, and especially for an iconic character like Indiana Jones. You would expect it to be all in third person because you get to see the character and all that. It'll be fun. But no, that's not what they did. They did first person very confidently, and I was so skeptical going in to play this. I was like, I only started playing this because I love Indiana Jones and I really wanted to play the game and to see what it's like. But I was so skeptical whether it's going to be good or not. But then it really, really surprised me. It actually works in first person the way they have built the game. And there are some moments where like you're doing some platforming sections and like you're climbing sections. It switches to third person so you can see, and that really works really well for that as well. But it's not a heavy on action. Like you think, oh, there's gonna be a lot of shooting sections where you shoot a lot of people, you make your way through. But no, it's actually very selective about the sections where you have to shoot people. Like the action combat sequences, they're very minimal. Most of the time, you're sneaking around. There's stealth sections, and that's what Indiana Jones mostly is actually. So it makes perfect sense. So your first choice when it comes to combat isn't to shoot your way through; it's actually sneak your way through, and that's what the game also encourages you to do as well. Because even if you do have a gun, it's got a very limited number of bullets. You have to use it as a last resort. You're not supposed to be, killing your way through. Actually, you're supposed to be actually sneaking your way through as much as you can. And even most of the time, like you concuss people, make them unconscious rather than actually killing them. So it's a very surprising way to go about this game, and it really works for the game, and it really surprised me. The story also is beautifully done. Pacing is pretty good. There's a section in the game where you are in a boat, essentially in a sandbox environment in Vietnam, I believe, and you're just like boarding around the map. That got a little bit boring for me, but in terms of pacing, but it picked up really well, really quick after that. Um, but yeah, oops, sorry, Alexa, stop. um, but yeah, it really picked up for me after that. And the other thing, like I have to mention, is yeah, it's got all these sandbox mission. Every mission that you start off, like main mission, it drops you in a sandbox where it's all like a semi-open world, and you're free to roam around and actually do side quests. So each time the big main mission is completed, you are taken into a completely new location in a complete, most of the time, completely different country, and you have side missions to do in it, and it's like its own little world. So it's really cool because it's not completely linear. You're actually in a like a bunch of little like few open worlds as you progress through the story, and you free to do whatever you want, roam around and like find things, and it really like helps with that exploration aspect as well. Like you make it makes you feel like you're really exploring, and they balance that pretty well. And it's a really, and because of that aspect of the game, it's a very long game. It takes a long time to complete if you're doing all that. But if you're just playing through the main campaign, it'll finish pretty quick. But if you're doing all the side quests and exploring, which is also fun, exploring is fun in this game, definitely go play this if you haven't already. The other game, Oblivion. I have to talk about Oblivion. This was really well done. This was a shadow drop. Nobody knew this was coming. 6 months ago, they just dropped it out of nowhere, and this was absolutely a big freaking deal, you know? It's a really good remaster. I know it feels like a complete remake because they used Unreal Engine 5 to build the graphics into the game, but they're essentially using the old engine and the same logics and same coding. All they have updated is the skin. So essentially, this is exactly the same as the old game. All they have done is updating the graphics. They haven't actually done any like different things. So it's not a complete remake. It's a remaster, even though it looks like a remake. And that's the point. It's really bloody well done. And it plays really well. Now you can run in this game, which is awesome. It actually changed the game completely, the fact that you can run. But yeah, this was one of the best games I played this year. This was one of the best games when it came out, and it still holds up. Imagine that. This is the level of creativity that Bethesda was known for, and that's why they still treat it as a legendary studio, even though they haven't actually released a good game in a while. They released this, I realized that, but this was essentially a reskin. This wasn't a remake. This was a reskin. This was still the same old game. All they have done is adding running to it and updating the graphics, but they haven't actually done anything else to it. It's the raw game as you have experienced it back then, and that's the beauty of it. It looks like a modern game, but plays like an old game. Anyway, if you haven't played Oblivion at all, like if you're young enough to not have played it back then, you have a chance to play it now, and it still holds up. Still holds up. All they needed to do is add the running, and it actually holds up now. So go and play it if you haven't. Next one, you know this was coming. This should not come to you as a surprise at this point. You know, it is Expedition 33. This was, holy crap, man. I don't think I had to spend a lot of time telling you how good this was, because it was good. Like, you should be already convinced at this point, because this won every award under the sun, like I said before, and everyone has been praising the game. So I don't have to convince you to play this. This is absolutely a banger, and it is one of the best games I have played this year for sure. The only thing that I would say is I'm not the kind of person who plays turn-based games, like turn-based combat games, like this one that you're about to see right here. So, as you can see, it's a turn-based game, but it also has some elements where you can do active parrying and dodging. That makes it feel like you're in live combat, which is why it works so well, because it's kind of a hybrid take to turn-based action RPG games with a active combat twist, where you do take your turn in take your turn in attacking the target, but you have to do active parrying and dodging, and that makes you that keeps you engaged throughout the combat, and makes it like a really fun thing to do. It's almost like what does it feel like? It feels like it's like a little mini game where you have to like time uh you know what is that game called, like in the carnival game where you like have a hammer and you like hit the popping heads. It feels like that. You gotta wait for until it pops up and just bam, like you hit it on time. It feels like that, but except you gotta time the parries and dodges, and that feels really satisfying when you get it right. And yeah, I don't know. They just nailed the combat, and the combat uh, was one of the highlights for me, especially as a person who don't play turn-based games like this. It was a really big surprise, because going into this, the only reason why I played it because it looks so good. Like the art style was very intriguing for me, and a lot of my mates actually recommended that I try it out, even though I don't play this type of game. So I kind of gave in. I'm like, all right, you know what? I will try it. And surprisingly, I ended up enjoying the heck out of this game, even as a player who don't play turn-based games. So that's saying something. So if you're not into turn-based games, I completely get it. But I say try this if you haven't already. If you're one of the few people who haven't tried it already, just try it. The other best pick for me is Doom: The Dark Ages. That's right, Doom: The Dark Ages is 100% one of my best picks. This is just mindless fun for me. It doesn't make you think too much. As you can see, it's like Dark Ages. Doom is not supposed to work in a environment like this. It's like a like not Middle Ages, what am I talking? It's like dark, yeah, it is kind of medieval times kind of thing, but it's a really weird hybrid take on the genre of Doom, and it still somehow works. You got a shield now, which is awesome, and you can literally aim the shield at people, and then just like you can look at it there, bam. You can just aim the shield and then just like slam onto them from a really great distance, and it feels so satisfying when you just slam onto them and they just go in pieces. It's crazy, and it doesn't make you think too much. All you have to do is pick up the upgrades and the health bars and the armor pieces, and then just keep slamming onto enemies and shooting them, and doing all the crazy stuff that you normally do in Doom games. And it's just mindless fun, just a lot of mindless fun, and it feels freaking great. Like it never gets old. Never really gets old, right? 100% one of the top picks for this year. So if you haven't played this game, I would definitely recommend you play this. The other pick for me, this was definitely one of the highlights for this year for me. I really enjoyed, which was Mafia: The Old Country. It's not a big game, I know. It's not like a massive game either, you know. Yeah, this was definitely one of the surprises for me, because after the disaster that was Mafia 3, I wasn't expecting much coming from Hangar 13. And even when they said, like, even first they announced the Mafia: The Old Country, they're going back to like the old Sicily, and this game is going to be a prequel to all the games before. Was a little skeptical as to what they were going to do, and then I saw some gameplay and it really got me excited. So they scaled it back a lot. And if you have played like original Mafia games, I'm talking about Mafia 1 and 2, with an exception of 3, the third one was an exception. What they have always done with their Mafia games is use the open world, like the cities that they've used. The open world was not really filled with like things to do. It was kind of used as a backdrop mainly, you know. That's what they've done with Mafia games, and it was kind of a thing for them. Like if you played first game and the second game, even the definitive edition or the first Mafia 1 remake, it's a beautiful game, and you'll see it's an open world game where you can drive around, but the open world doesn't really have anything, and it's not supposed to, because it's just a backdrop for your main story, and that's the kind of the point. But what they did with Mafia 3 was they tried to make the open world fill with stuff for you to do, and that became kind of a mess because that's not their strong suit. Hangar 13 is really good at delivering heartfelt stories, Their storytelling is actually one of the best in the industry, and but what they're not great at is producing open world with a lot of side quest and content. That's not their strong suit. They tried to do that with Mafia 3 and they just didn't work. So what they have done with Mafia all country is then going back to the roots of how they made the first games. And essentially what they have done is you got the old Sicily, and it's a kind of a backdrop. You got a looming volcano that's about to erupt. It's smoking, and that's kind of the presence of itself. It's a character. So they made the entire old Sicily country into a character in itself that's alive and well, and that really worked for the story. You literally don't have a single thing to do in that world. You can drive around. You can go ride around in a horse in the countryside, and it's really nice. It's beautiful to look at. This is the said volcano I'm talking about up there over here. Up this, you can see that in the background in these shots. And the volcano itself also plays a huge part of the story as well, because the looming threat of volcanic eruption. And I really had fun with it. Really had fun with it. And it's kind of like a juxtaposition, I would say, because the 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 mood of the volcano kind of kind of reflecting the progression of the story and like what's going on in the actual story that's been told. And it's really fun to draw that comparison and see what the hell is going on. It's really heartfelt, it's really moving, and it's a bit of a tearjerker in the end, actually. And I did not expect it to be this good, honestly. Again, combat is nothing to give a lot of praise about or anything. It's very minimal, and you just your normal basic combat, nothing you haven't seen before. But the storytelling and the way it plays, it's actually very good. um the only thing I had issues with is like the main, like every now and then you have knife fights with people, and that felt a little forced at times. In some of the times it made sense, but other times it just didn't make sense. um yeah, other times it didn't make sense. But yeah, other than that, the game was great. So if you haven't played this is maybe a couple of weekends and you can finish it. So if you haven't played this, I highly encourage you to play this game. Highly encourage you. This is also probably shouldn't come to you as a surprise, is Ghost of Your Tale. I know. People like, calling this Ghost of War K or whatever. But man, this game was amazing. I really enjoyed Ghost of Tsushima, and you guys know this. I've talked numerous times about this before, but I really had fun playing this game. I think this actually plays a little bit better than Ghost of Tsushima did, which is saying a lot. And yeah, it's a very different game, both thematically, story wise, and also the gameplay wise as well, because you're not doing stances, like different stances with your katana anymore, because you're not really a samurai. um in this one, you're more like a ronin, like you're a ghost, actually. So um it plays a little bit different, because now you don't have stances, you have different weapons that you switch between during combat. Somehow it plays really well. It really, I was pretty skeptical, but the concept of switching between different weapons, melee weapons during combat, is exactly the same as what they did with the different stances in the first game. But instead of different stances, you're just switching weapons. That's all it is. But the feel and the combat, how it like flows out, is exactly the same, and it's just done better. So it's really good, and the world itself is pretty. I think it's actually bigger than what Tsushima was, and it's a really good time. It's not groundbreaking. They haven't done a lot of things different to the first game. It's just they've improved on the first game and then just like really like polished it up. And the first game was a big great time, and this was even better. So if you haven't played this game, and if you have a PS5, play it. This is probably going to eventually come out on PC anyway. But until then, if you got a PS5, play this game. I've got 2 more. The other thing for me was Battlefield 6. This should not come to you as a surprise, man. Like Battlefield 6 is obvious. Like obviously. What else can I say, man? This has been coming. We've been expecting a Battlefield game for years, ever since 2042 was a disastrous launch, and they stopped making Battlefield games, and it's been kind of like really annoying. We haven't had a Battlefield game. I think a lot of people share that sentiment with me, I think. And I had no choice but to go back to Call of Duty. Call of Duty was good with like Modern Warfare Remake. Even Modern Warfare 2, I would give it a pass. And Black Ops 6 was actually not bad either, to be honest. But yeah, they mucked it up with Battlefield. Black Ops 7. Really messed it up. Anyway, my point is, you have this game, and yeah, this it's a long coming. It's long coming, and they finally made Battlefield 6, and golly, it's one of the best, I think. It's definitely not the best. I wouldn't go as far as that. But it is one of the best. I would put it up there, right after Battlefield 3 and 4, and even I would put Battlefield 1 after that, and then after that I would put this one for sure. So this is still one of the best, and it plays really well. It's not perfect. It's still got like a lot of few issues that needs fixing, and they're constantly tweaking it, which is awesome. That means like the developers are really actively listening to player feedback and trying to improve it, which is fantastic. And yeah, it's still one of the best times I've ever had recently, and this actually brought my old squad back together. It made me reconnect with old friends, which is amazing, and made a lot more new friends playing the game. So it's all about bringing that community back together, and it really worked well, I think. And because the whole thing is about teamwork, and it's actually did that. Unfortunately, Arc Raiders, I would love to put that on my best picks, and it would have gone on my best pick list this year if I had played enough of it. The issue is I actually haven't played enough of Arc Raiders because I just don't have anyone to play that with. All my mates are on Battlefield still, so I end up sticking to this still. So I unfortunately haven't had enough time or anyone I don't have a duo buddy to play Arc Raiders with, so I can't put this on the list. But I know that is also one of the best multiplayer games to come this year. So I'm not picking that over this or anything. I'm just saying this is what I've been playing, and it's a great time. So I have to put this in my list. So if you haven't played it, go play it. Got one last game to include in my best picks for 2025, which is Where Winds Meet. Where Winds Meet is a really, really big surprise. I've been talking about this game forever before this came out, and I said this is gonna be something to keep an eye out for. This is gonna be massive. But I didn't realize how massive it would be. It already had over 10 million people playing this game, and it's largely due to because it's a free game that really works for them, and also it's on PC and also mobile and PS5, which the fact that it's also on mobile probably opens up a lot more playability, adds a lot more playability to it. I think it's coming to Nintendo Switch. I don't know if it is, to be sure, so take that with a grain of salt. But yeah, it's on PS5 and PC, and it's pretty light on the specs as well. So it's pretty much playable on any PC, regardless of like, even if you have low specs, this will play really well, and it will look great. It's scaled. Even if you play this on mobile, I tried this a couple of days on mobile just to see how it is. You have like cross progression as well. Like if you sign into your account on mobile, you can just switch back between like your mobile game version and your PC version, and you can continue the same progress, which is awesome. And that leads to like me end up playing this when I'm out and about on my mobile phone, and then playing it on my PC when I'm at home. But my point is, it's really accessible and it's really easy to pick up and play. The starting part takes a while to like get through, but once you do that, it really takes off, and the game is freaking amazing. It's a really fun time. It's very goofy at times. It honestly doesn't take itself seriously, which is one of the best things about the game. And it knows that it's a game and it's there to have fun. That's all I will say. So if you haven't played this, there's no reason for you to not try it because it's free. So just try it and see how it is, because I'm telling you, you're gonna have a lot of fun. 100%. A lot of fun with this game. So those are my picks for 2025. And yeah, going into 2026, make sure to play those. I know there are like so many other games that I haven't mentioned, like Split Fiction, Assassin's Creed Shadows, Atomfall, the first Berserker, Kazan. That was one of the good ones. Blueprints, Dune Awakening was a surprise. The Alters, Death Stranding 2, Metal Gear Solid Delta remake, Hell is Us, Silent Hill F. We got Dispatch, also one of the good ones. The Outer Worlds 2 was okay. Arc Raiders, like I said before. So these, I haven't forgotten those games. I have played, but these are my best picks that I mentioned before. Those will be my best ones. Let me know what your best picks are for 2025. And if you haven't played any of the games that I mentioned, please go and give it a shot, starting with Where Winds Meet, because that's free. It's the easiest one to get into. And let me know what you think. Let me know your best picks for 2025.